Hey guys, Justin here from CBI Off-Road and Prinsu. Today we're going to show you how to put a Prinsu roof rack on your Subaru Crosstrek. Stay tuned. Alright, so just to give you guys an overview, our ultimate goal is to remove the factory roof rack, obviously, to get the Prinsu on. So to do that, we'll need to get the headliner kind of hanging down to allow us to take loose some nuts that hold the factory roof rack on. So in order to do that, we're just going to start working our way. We're at the back of the vehicle now. We're going to work our way towards the front and just kind of removing all these interior plastic components. So there's a lot of screws, a lot of clips, a lot of things like that. So we'll go over kind of some general tools. I have these plastic pries. They work really great so they don't really scratch the surface. Here's a metal pry tool. I've kind of taped up the end so it's less abrasive. You'll need some flathead screwdrivers, some Phillips screwdrivers, things like that. So take your time, definitely don't rush this process. It's really simple if you just kind of follow the steps we're going to outline. Sorry, a lot of talking, but to get back to the process, I've removed the floor mat and everything hiding the spare tire. So we're going to remove these panels around here. And like I said, we'll go slow, give you some tight shots of what we're doing, but we'll go ahead and start working our way towards the front now. Okay, so now we're going to take out these Phillips screws. So there's one down here, here, up here, and behind this little tab there's another one. We'll show you how to pry that tab out to get to that screw. Once these are out, we'll kind of start working this panel out and this one. We don't need to come all the way out with it, just get it far enough away that the headliner will be able to come down. So we'll go ahead and get our Phillips, get these guys out. All right, to get to this screw, we're just gonna pull down this little hook, put a flathead screwdriver in the top here, and just pry straight out. It'll pop off. Make sure you keep good track of all your parts so that putting it back together, you have everything. We'll go ahead and remove this screw. All right, so here's the inside of the piece we just removed. You can kind of note the location of these plastic clips. That'll give you an idea kind of where you need to pull out on the piece. This hole is where the Phillips head screw was back here, but these are the white plastic clips that you'll need to pull on to remove this piece. All right, so next step, we're just, like I said, moving towards the front of the vehicle. We need to remove our grab handles on all 4 locations. Real quick note though, kind of a pro tip, because we don't want to wrinkle this headliner, have it kind of sagging, unsupported. So there's 3 clips at the back that we left in until the very end. We'll take those out, but we just don't want that extra weight just kind of pulling on that back corner when we're not ready to be back there yet. So we'll leave those in while we proceed to the front. These door handles, it kind of helps if you could just keep it supported down, but there's a slot on each side here, and we're just going to use a flat head screwdriver, smaller one, on each side. We'll just insert it in, and we're just going to turn it a little bit to where it starts coming out at us, and we're just going to pull that straight out. We'll do the same thing on this side and then pull the handle straight towards us. All right, so now moving to the B pillar of the vehicle, we're gonna pull this trim back. We're gonna pull up the kick plate a little bit, start working the bottom piece out, and then the same with the top. Once we get the bottom piece out, we'll be able to have more viewing in there of what other screws and clips lay in there. But for right now, rubber kick plate and pry this straight out. Okay, so here's our clip locations on this lower panel. What we did was we pulled out on these locations, slid it straight down to separate it from this top piece. Now we can access this bolt right here to remove this, and then we'll want to kind of come down with this as well. Okay, so this one just has that pink clip towards the top of this. We moved our seat belt all the way down to allow this to drop as low as it can go. We want to remove this clip and put it onto this piece, just so when we reattach, we just simply push it on. So we're gonna go ahead and do that now. All right, so now we're up front in the vehicle. We're gonna continue with our removing our handles. So those come out the same way as the ones we took in the back row. Then we have our visor we'll take down and the A-pillar we'll take down. We're gonna leave this middle piece just because everything we need to access is on the side. So we don't need to fully drop this headliner in order to get to that. So we'll just go ahead and start with our handles. We'll get our visor, then our A-pillar. All right, so those three clips that we left in the back, we're gonna go ahead and use our trim removal tool and get those out. So this is kind of a two-piece setup. So we'll remove this colored piece, then we'll remove the clear piece. We'll do that on all three of these. There we go. Now we're ready to remove our factory rack. All right, so now we're gonna remove our factory rack, and that's held on by, the rack has studs on the bottom and there's 10mm nuts threaded onto it. So we're gonna show you kind of where they're laid out. We're gonna do our best to get a good shot of it. It's just a really tough shot to capture the details, but just to kind of fly over it, there's two right here on this front mounting location. There's gonna be two right here in this middle mounting location. There's gonna be one roughly right here and one roughly right here. So once we get those out, we'll be able to pull the rack straight up on each side. We have liftoff. All right, now with the factory roof rack off, we're gonna go over there and drill out the holes to 3/8 inch. That'll allow for our plus nuts to install flushly and securely. So follow me to the vehicle. All right, so now it's time to drill these out. So again, we have a 3/8 drill bit. We're gonna drill out all the existing factory holes to this size. We're gonna install plus nuts in all of them. This front, second one back on both sides, that one we're gonna install a plus nut, but we're just gonna be plugging that hole. It's not actually gonna get a mounting location to it, but we'll get to that in a little bit. Right now, we'll get drilling. All right, so now it's time to install our plus nuts, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. So we're gonna take our 2.5 inch bolt that was included in your hardware kit. We're gonna slide a fender washer up. This is our hex coupler. We're gonna slide that on. Another washer, and then a plus nut. So we're gonna run this plus nut all the way up to where it's snug tight. So this whole assembly is snug. We got the bolt protruding out from the plus nut. Now we're ready to install it. We'll put some of our black RTV silicone on the inside lip of this to seal the surface to the vehicle. This black RTV, it's a great sealer. It's very pliable. It moves around with expansion and contraction and hot and cold. It's great with UV rays, so that is the best thing to use to seal these roofs. So we're gonna seal the inside edge so that when the plus nut is attached to the vehicle and expands, that surface underneath is sealed. We'll get to the rest of sealing later on, but right now we'll get these installed. Now to compress these, we're gonna use a 1/2 inch wrench. We're gonna hold it on the flex coupler, and we are going to tighten down with a 7/16 this top bolt right here with it all the way in the hole. And we'll just keep going, and that'll expand this plus nut underneath the roof. And the nice thing about having the headliner down is you can actually look under there and visually see the expansion of the plus nut, so you know when it's fully expanded. And then you'll just simply remove this bolt and just move on and do that for the whole roof. So apologize for the long-winded talking, but now we're gonna get these in. All right, so now what I like to do is get everything unpacked, kind of laid out how it's gonna assemble, get all your hardware unpacked and kind of laid out, get your washers on your bolts, both sides, and then get some Loctite on everything. Loctite's gonna come in your hardware kit, so just make sure you put a little dab on the end of it, and then just get everything laid out. It'll make your assembly a lot smoother when your stuff is nice and prepped, ready to go. All right, so we got all our hardware unpacked, everything's prepped. We're gonna go ahead and get the wind deflector put together. So we have this bag of hardware here that has the shorter Phillips head bolts, as well as these little T-nuts. You're gonna wanna slide these into the extrusions with the threaded part facing up. So once you get the even number of T-nuts inserted, you can flip the wind deflector on top here and get these screwed in. Make sure to put Loctite on these Phillips head bolts as well. All right, so wind deflector is good. Now what we're gonna do is we're gonna start assembling some of these crossbars going down. We don't want to assemble a crossbar that's gonna be over a mounting foot, because that'll prevent us from getting access to tighten the bolt down to the roof. So we're just gonna install them on these locations that are open, and we're gonna install them in these smaller slots. Now this first one is gonna get our bolt-on mounting foot, so don't forget to slide in 2 of the 1/4-inch carriage bolts on each end of this in preparation for that mounting foot. We won't bolt it down yet, but we'll just get the bolts ready to go, and we'll secure it in its slot. And I'm using a low powered impact, so it's turned all the way down. You just wanna be really careful if you're gonna use an impact that you don't strip it out or over tighten the bolt. If not, going by hand is just fine. We're just using that to speed up the video for you. All right, so we got the rack on the vehicle. We're just gonna do a couple things up here in this corner before we get too far. We have our 1-inch bolt. We're gonna go ahead and thread it into our unused plus nut right here, but before we do that, we're gonna fill inside the hole with silicone and around, and then we're gonna start this in there and run it in with our ratchet or wrench, whatever you got. So that'll have 2 layers of RTV silicone on it, so that's gonna be a great water barrier. The threads are gonna be sealed all the way in, and we have Loctite on the bolt, so it's not gonna back out. And then installing our bracket on the front, you want to install, I got these mixed up, install the feet where it is gonna be offsetting towards the rear of the vehicle. Just get it hand tight for right now, and it's gonna go on these 2 carriage bolts that we slid in. Don't get it all the way tight, just hand tight for right now is good. All right, so we got the roof rack in place. We got everything silicone. All the bolts are hand tight. I went ahead and got everything nice and aligned with the vehicle. Definitely want to check front, back, all the sides, make sure it's sitting right. And now we'll start going around tightening everything down. Be careful not to over tighten. They are just 1/4 inch, so just get everything nice and tight, and then we'll get the rest of these crossbars assembled. All right, so now on the wind deflector, we're using the lowest mounting holes available just to fit it as tight to the roof as we can. So I have the other side secured. We're sliding in these 1/4 inch carriage bolts to allow our light bar brackets to be mounted up. So we'll need 2 on each side for that. If you're not running a light bar, you don't need to worry about this step. Once we got those in, we'll go ahead and start these bolts back in and get it tightened down. All right, so now we're bringing the party back in the vehicle. The roof rack's done. So we're just gonna do everything basically in reverse. So we'll start with our A-pillar, getting everything clipped back in. We'll get our sun visor, our handles, and then start working back to the B-pillar. All right, so putting this back together, we want to slide it into place, line up the pink clip, push that guy in. Next, we'll get our small bolt started down here at the bottom. And we'll go ahead and tighten that up with a Phillips screwdriver. You can also use a 10mm ratchet. Okay, once that's tight, then we can get this lower piece lined up on the green clips. Start at the bottom, we'll work our way up, push that in, push that middle in, come around to the front of the car, just get that popped into place, just like that. And now we'll get our cover on. And then get our trim and keep working our way back. Okay, now on this rear panel, if you look kind of through this gap in here, you'll see the white clips. So you just want to line those up with the corresponding holes and just pull it into place. It's kind of all over, even pressure. Go to the back. All right, now we'll get our Phillips head screwdriver. We'll get our Phillips head screws back in. Keep moving along. These panels go in. Freaking abandoned me right there, dude. Okay, repeat on the other side. Alright guys, thank you for watching today's install tutorial of the Prinsu Roof Rack on the Subaru Crosstrek. As always, like and subscribe, and if you got any questions, leave us a comment below. Thanks.